You're watching Minnesota Vikings Now by Chat Sports. I am Tom Downey. Some training camp takeaways coming up, but the preseason, at long last, is just around the corner. If you are hyped about week 1 of the preseason, let's have some fun. Type in FLV for F the Las Vegas Raiders in the comments. The autumn wind might be a Raider, but it also smells like a turd. Type in FLV right now. Here's what's coming up on today's show. We'll talk about Zach Davidson if a breakout could finally happen. I don't know, finally, but happened for the young tight end. Dalvin Tomlinson being a little bit of a coach from that standpoint. A potential new punt returner. If Trishton Jackson can make this team, and if maybe Minnesota should consider trading for a different backup quarterback. We begin, though, with Zach Davidson, who has shown some promise so far in training camp. With Irv Smith banged up, he's trying to take advantage of the extra reps. Davidson split some first-team reps alongside Johnny Munt, the favorite to be tight end 2 once Irv Smith ends up getting healthy. He's been winning pretty much every 50-50 ball so far, and he's got that rare size and frame, 6'7", 250 pounds, that could make him a prime red zone threat. Now, he's also not been great during run blocking. That is an issue. We know how much coaches value blocking, even in the modern day NFL from a run perspective. There were drop issues early on in his career, and separation has not been his thing, although that tends to happen with 6'7", 250 guys. It's a lot easier for a tiny guy to get open than it is a big guy, but you benefit by being such a big person. Now, Irv Smith, in theory, fingers crossed, knock on wood, all that good luck stuff, should be back as tight end 1 for this team. I am excited to see how Zach Davidson fares in the preseason because I entered this training camp, this preseason, worried about the tight end depth. Johnny Munt, Ben Ellefson. If the reports and hype are to be believed, the team trusts Johnny Munt and they like Zach Davidson. He's shown some flashes here. If that is the case, maybe we're not as worried about the tight end depth as at least I was earlier on. And I do wonder if there could be a specific role carved out for Zach Davidson. Could he be that red zone threat replacement guy that Kyle Rudolph was for so long? Of course, Rudolph offered more than just red zone, but it's a good start for a day 3 pick to earn that role early on in his career. So with the camp hype moving along, how confident are you in the Vikings tight end room at this point? Let me know in the comment section. Scale it from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So if an ad break happens to come here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know your confidence level in the Vikings tight end room. Let's talk about Dalvin Tomlinson now. As, of course, I think most people know, the Vikings are making the move to the 3-4 scheme in terms of base, quote-unquote, which, you know, you run nickel. Tomlinson played in the 3-4 in both the New York Giants and back at Alabama. And he's been fairly helpful to teammates who, you know, aren't as familiar with that scheme and the different roles the defensive linemen and the front guys play in a 3-4 scheme versus a 4-3. It's not overly different, but it is different enough to have to make some impact. Here's what his teammate Harrison Phillips had to say. Dalvin, just his veteranship, it's not a word, but we'll allow it anyway, of being in a defense for what, 6 years? He did it at Bama. He's been doing this for a while. I'll turn after seeing something on film and ask him, hey, would you have played this way? Am I okay if I tighten up here because I'm more of an attack guy? I like the input and the leaning on a guy who's been through it before. You always want coaches, of course, who know the scheme, but it's very beneficial for an organization to have a player who also knows that scheme. The job of your 3-4 defensive linemen are to open up lanes and make life a little bit easier on Eric Kendricks and Jordan Hicks, your top linebackers. You're going to be two-gapping a hell of a lot more than you ever were in a 4-3 scheme. You're going to be asked to absorb blockers. That's Harrison Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson. Your job is to tie up blockers, not to necessarily be a high-end tackle for loss. Second, of course, you want that, but if you do your dirty work right, especially in a base 3-4, it tends to lead to pretty good things overall for your defense. I am quite excited about how this new-look Vikings defense is going to fare in 2022. Coming up next, we'll look at a potentially new punt returner full-time for the Minnesota Vikings. An early favorite has emerged for that job. But first, Let's make sure we subscribe to Minnesota Vikings Now. It's Vikings versus Raiders this week on the football field, on the gridiron, and here in a sub-battle on YouTube. And bad news, we are getting crushed by the Raiders report, 405 against 103. That's pretty disappointing there. And we got a lot more room to grow than the Raiders report does. So if you want coverage of the preseason game and Vikings coverage all season and off-season long, hit that big red button right now. Let's talk about Ihmir Smith-Marsette, as he has been listed as the Vikings' first-string punt returner, with rookie wide receiver Jalen Nailor listed as his backup. I want Smith-Marsette. If I were picking my guy, I want him to be the punt returner. I like what he brings in that area. I think there's still untapped upside, mainly as a vertical threat, on the offense as well. If this is accurate, and we know that unofficial depth charts can be, well, they're unofficial for a reason. Assuming, of course, he is the punt returner, that makes he's a roster lock, right? The fact that Minnesota put him on there unofficially, I think, is a good sign for Ihmir Smith-Marsette. I am old enough to remember when people thought he was not going to make the roster at all. I've never bought into that. I like Ihmir Smith-Marsette. I want him as punt returner. Let Kenny Nwangu be your kick returner. I think Smith-Marsette has talent. We'll see what happens in the games, though, because if he's not back there on punt returns, well, it's unofficial depth chart for a reason. The Vikings t-shirt combo pack is available still on sale at chatsports.com/Vikings combo. You will not find a better t-shirt combo pack offer that's officially licensed by the NFL, i.e. not the knockoff styles. Normally, you got to spend $30 to get an officially licensed Vikings or any NFL team gear. Guess what, folks? Two of them for $30. Chatsports.com/Vikings combo. The link's in the comments section and in the description of today's show. More receiver conversation here. Could Trishton Jackson find a way to make the team? Now, he has drawn a lot of praise so far in Vikings training camp as a breakout, surprise, standout, etc. He had a good practice on Monday. That's been fairly consistent overall for his time with this Vikings team. However, there is a difficult path for Jackson to actually make the 53-man roster. Quick note for starters, the most consistent thread across every NFL team's training camp for every single year, receivers look great. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the lack of pads, the setup, the drills, whatever. Receivers always look good in camp, and that very often does not carry over at the same level to the actual games that matter. But the depth chart for Minnesota at wide receiver, it's pretty loaded. Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne. They're going to make this team. Ihmir Smith-Marsette, if he's punt returner, he's going to make it. BC Johnson, Jalen Nailor. Draft picks, veterans like Albert Wilson, then Trishton Jackson. And this could change in the preseason, because Jackson does not bring special teams value, that hurts. When you're a receiver 5, when you're a receiver 6, and you don't contribute on special teams, you have a very difficult path to making the roster. Maybe he'll get some of those in the preseason. If not, I think he's a prime practice squad option because, yes, you'll be able to stash him on there. Let's talk a little bit negatively now for the first time today. The backup quarterback situation is, well, maybe it's what we expected, or at least what Mike Zimmer expected. The new staff, as of now, could still change, has not been able to unlock anything out of Kellen Mond. That's not someone I was in love with in terms of the ability, the talent from coming out of A&M. There were flashes, but consistency was certainly not the case. And Sean Mannion, not to be a huge a-hole, he's Sean Mannion. We know what he is. He's not going to be a good player. So I have a question for you. Would you bring in another quarterback to compete or even just flat out surpass Sean Mannion and Kellen Mond? Y for yes or N for no in the comments section. 3 names that I think we can consider, and I'll shout out Vikings fan producer Patrick for putting them together. There would require something to happen to a couple of these guys. Gardner Minshew is not nearly as beloved, as hyped as I think some people think he is. There's a reason why he was traded for so little to the Philadelphia Eagles. They could potentially try to ship him out, maybe get more back. They've got Reed Sinnett and hey, maybe Carson Strong's knee isn't a disaster. Tyrod Taylor is an interesting name. The way that this one could come to fruition is what if, hypothetically, the Niners traded Jimmy G to the Giants? Is Tyrod, the Giants want to have him as QB3? Could be a great backup in Minnesota. And maybe just because you want to bring back the Minneapolis legend, Case Keenum, in a deal for the Buffalo Bills. It's a new regime, so it's different, but hey, a nice little reunion is always fun. It will be very interesting. Probably the number one thing outside of a few position battles that I'm going to watch for is how those backup quarterbacks fare in the preseason. Backup offensive lines make it a lot tougher on quarterbacks because the offensive line play in the NFL sucks beyond the top couple guys in terms of like starters. Depth is always poor. That'll be an issue for QBs, but I think will benefit Kellen Mond and his mobility. I am curious to see how those QBs fare in the preseason. If you have not already, I am once again asking you to subscribe, especially if you hate the Green Bay Packers, because let's be honest, who doesn't? Hit that big red button and subscribe right now.